Good evening, and thank you for tuning in to Conversations in Education. I'm your host, Vincent Cheeks. Welcome back and Happy New Year. We've been on a bit of a hiatus, I believe, since the beginning of last summer. And now we are back with a new office, a new beginning, and a new lease on life. I'm very excited for 2020, as I hope everyone else is. And I just want to say Happy New Year once again. What better way to start a new year than with a new war? Unfortunately, there's been some developments since last week with Iran. Before I get into that, let me do my disclaimer or my opening. You're listening to WCEG Network on WCEGTalkRadio.com, or you can watch us live on your smart TV, YouTube, WCEG Network. I am Vincent Cheeks, your show host of Conversations in Education, and you will be listening to the sound of my voice for the next 1 hour. We are the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. So on Twitter, it is WCEG_talk_radio, and on Twitter, it is at WCEG Network. Join the conversation. Call in or Skype 1-678-619-1402. 678-619-1402. Ask questions, make comments, and voice your concerns. Let us hear from you. Again, the number is 678-619-1402. Last but not least, this is the disclaimer. The topics and opinions are those of the show host and guest, and not WCEG Network. Thank you for your continued support, and I wish you a blessed and prosperous new year. So, as I was saying before, if you don't know, there's a possibility that we may be going to war with Iran. As of January 2nd of last year, freshly into the new year, President Trump launched a missile attack and killed a top Iranian leader. His name was Qasem Soleimani, and he died along with another Iraqi leader. There has been condemnation of the president for him acting without Congress's approval. And there has also been condemnation because before we had been trying to deal with Iran diplomatically. And now this could possibly escalate and launch us into World War III from some stories that I've read. I'm hoping that that doesn't happen, but everyone should be on high alert. As a matter of fact, the military was put on high alert today because since last week, the leaders in Iran have stated constantly that there will be revenge. And so they have targeted U.S. military sites, U.S. military embassies and bases, and we can only imagine what they could possibly have planned for anything over here in the United States. So everyone needs to be on guard. Everyone needs to be vigilant. Everyone needs to keep an eye out. If you see something, say something. That has been a mantra for the United States since 9/11 happened. I think things are going to get pretty bad. We've been teasing this war with Iran ever since the war in Iraq happened. And now it looks like there's a very strong possibility that they may happen because, as I said before, the Iranian leaders have promised revenge to their people. And the daughter of Qasem Soleimani asked who will be the one to take revenge, and one of their leaders replied, everyone. So things may get pretty bad pretty soon. We can only pray for our country. So in response to his criticism, President Trump has stated that Soleimani was a very bad actor and that he was planning imminent attacks on the United States. But unfortunately, as of right now, no one in his administration has released any documents or given any proof of these imminent attacks. And to be honest, for me, it's kind of reminiscent of the George W. Bush. It's reminiscent of the George W. Bush administration in their false cause of weapon of mass destruction when we went into Iraq. So the government, the American people, need to be really vigilant and really stay pressing the government for answers as to why this attack happened. All righty. Okay. I wanted to finish wrapping up that about President Trump, because he made a statement last Thursday or Friday that said he launched that attack to not start a war, but to prevent a war, which to me was one of many ludicrous things that the president has said, because I don't see how you can launch a missile attack, circumvent Congress to get permission to launch said missile attack, and then make the claim that you are not trying to start a war. Now, what happened for them to even launch this missile attack was that an American contractor was killed in Iraq, I believe, but American contractor was killed, and they're blaming Soleimani for that death. And so contractor gets killed, they kill one of their top leaders and the leader of the Iranian Kurd force. The UK and other allies of the United States are currently trying to talk to President Trump and Iranian officials, trying to get them to de-escalate from possibly escalating into World War III, possibly. So we definitely don't want that to happen. So pray for the president, pray for the government, and pray that we don't have another all-out war. Okay, now that I've got that off my chest, let's get into the topic for today. It's 2007. I am doing something a little different today, and it's called Education Nation, where I am going to share stories from around the country that pertain to either students or education. So I have 3 stories today. We may not get to all of them, but I do want to discuss them. And the overall essence of these 3 stories is adults behaving badly and what we need to do as a community to ensure the safety of our students and our children, because things are getting pretty bad, and it's putting our students at risk, and that's not good. So the first story is about an Illinois bus driver, and the title states that a video captures an Illinois school bus driver drinking beer while transporting students. So, an Illinois school bus driver was fired and charged with allegedly drinking beer while transporting more than 24 young children. Michelle Paisley, age 44, was terminated and arrested on Monday after a video appeared to show her drinking from 2 cans of beer while behind the wheel of a school bus full of elementary students. Aurora Police Department Chief Kristen Zyman states, "When we put our children on the school bus in the morning, the idea is that we have placed our kids in the safekeeping of someone who is going to take good care of them. It's infuriating to believe that someone who is trusted with these children on a daily basis could potentially put them in this kind of danger." The police department was first alerted by a manager at the First Student Bus Company. The manager received a call from a convenience store clerk, and the convenience store clerk stated that she witnessed the school bus driver purchase the beer on November 15th and then watched her walk onto the school bus and drive away. The police department opened a criminal investigation into the matter and began collecting evidence, looking at video clips and interviewing witnesses. They learned that the bus driver picked up the bus around 6 a.m. on a Friday. She completed one route. Then she decided it was time to go to the gas station for a beer break. She goes in, purchases 2 cans of beer, and then gets onto the school bus with 32 elementary school students. Pasley is being charged with 2 counts of endangering life, health of a child, and released on a $100 bond. She was scheduled to appear in court on December the 27th. She showed a blatant disregard for the students' safety, and the members of the community take things like this very, very seriously. Police Chief Zyman said that there are 2 very strong messages to go out here. And the first message is that they need the help of the community when things like this happen. She said that if not for an alert store clerk at the gas station, that no one would be none the wiser to this incident. And she is probably correct. So as a community, we have to be there for our children. Again, like I said earlier, if you see something, say something, because this situation could have ended very badly. It could have ended in a loss of life. It could have ended in the loss of 32 lives of young children if this store clerk had not been vigilant, and not only being vigilant, making the call to ensure that these students were safe. And the other message that the police chief Zyman wanted to get out is that this type of behavior won't be tolerated in the community. As an adult, we are put into positions of power and authority over young people's lives, and these young people trust us. And once we break that trust, it's very hard to get that back. It's hard to get it back from the students. It's hard to get it back from the school. It's hard to get it back from the community. I'm very glad that this young lady was arrested and will face charges for her actions. And hopefully she'll learn a very big lesson from this. There was also another incident 2 weeks prior to this one in Oregon. That bus driver was a 20-year-old named Jonathan Gates. He was arrested after deputies discovered that he appeared to be impaired. Now, he wasn't drinking. Oregon is a legal state, so he was not drinking. He was under the influence of marijuana while driving a bus with 10 students ages 10 to 16. The bus went off the road and went into a ditch. If you see the video on the internet, when it went into the ditch, the bus was literally on just 2 wheels and could have very flipped over and exploded or anything. It could have been a very, very bad situation, but fortunately no one was hurt in the incident. And the 20-year-old was arrested for DUI, controlled substance, and he is on leave while the Forest Grove School District investigates what happened in this situation. The police sergeant there, Danny D. Petro, he states, when it comes to crimes like these, we take it very seriously, but they are misdemeanor crimes. So my response to that is, if they take it that seriously, then anything that endangers the life of a child or children should be considered a felony. A misdemeanor, this young man, being that it happened in a legal state, he's probably going to get a slap on the wrist. Hopefully he will lose his job and not be in a position to be in charge of the safety of young children anymore. So I definitely think that there needs to be harsher punishment when it comes to adults behaving badly with children, no matter what it is. So it definitely needs to be a felony and at least 6 months to a year in jail, prison, or whatever you want to call it. So I have a few questions pertaining to these articles that I just mentioned. I'm really trying to understand what is going on with the common sense in adults these days. Now, the second story that I mentioned with Mr. Gates, he's 20 years old. So I don't expect much from a 20-year-old. Not only is he 20 years old, but he's 20 years old in a state where marijuana is legal. So what do you expect a 20-year-old is going to do? But you have to use better judgment when it comes to dealing with young children. He should have known that anything could have went wrong in that situation, and if one of those children had lost his life, he would have dealt with the guilt from that for a very long time. The other young lady in the story is not really that young. Miss Pasley is a 44-year-old woman, and she definitely should know better than to purchase alcohol and get on a bus with 32 students and start driving. Not only did she buy the beer, once she started driving the school bus, video from inside the school bus shows her drinking both of the beers. So she was very bold and very brazen and very disconnected, if you will, from the possibilities of what could have happened while she's drinking and driving with students on the bus. And mind you, with Miss Pasley, this story happened at 6 something in the morning. With Mr. Gates, it happened at 8 a.m. in the morning. So my question is, what is going on in your life that's that serious or that bad to where you have to self-medicate that early in the morning and then put yourself in a situation where you're placing the lives of young children in danger? And so my next question would be, what type of vetting process does the school have when it comes to hiring people? Like, how deep does the background check go? Are you doing mental health evaluations? What is the vetting process when it comes to hiring these bus drivers? Bus drivers play a very important role. I know some people don't look at bus drivers as doing very much, but they're responsible for getting the students to and from school. And that is a huge responsibility. And if you're not going to take that serious, then you shouldn't be put into a position of power. So the school and the school system definitely has to do a better job of vetting people when they're putting them into these positions of power. But also on a personal accountability level, we as grown-ups have to be able to admit when we have issues that we can't deal with, whether it's mental health, whether it's personal, whatever it is. We all go through things in life, and we have to be able to be honest with ourselves and say, okay, I know I have a problem, and I know I have a drinking beer. So that's a serious issue. And self-medicating is definitely not the answer, especially if you can't control yourself when you self-medicate. So please, school systems, we definitely have to do a better job of vetting these people. I know people think that being a bus driver may be on the lower rung of the ladder when it comes to dealing with children, but everybody plays an important role when it comes to the safety and well-being of our students. And when it comes to Mr. Gates' story with him smoking marijuana, does the school not drug test when they're hiring these people? because marijuana stays in your system for 30 days. So I'm sure this wasn't Mr. Gates' first time using marijuana and decided he wanted to drive these 10 children to their destination that morning. So the onus and the responsibility falls on the school as to how they're vetting these people. And even if they do find out that something is going on with someone, is it an immediate fireable offense? Because Miss Pashley got fired immediately and Mr. Gates is suspended upon pending the outcome of the investigation. So should it be an immediately fireable offense when you drink, do drugs, or do anything else that puts children in harm's way? Or is it a situation where, depending on the person, depending on the scenario, that you try to get that person some help? I remember when I was in corporate America, when I first moved to Atlanta, Georgia in 2000, I was at State Farm. And if you had been with the company for more than a year and it was found out that you had some type of substance abuse problem, whether it was marijuana or alcohol, they would send you to a rehab facility and they would pay for it. And I thought that was absolutely amazing that they would do that. So I'm not really sure. Yeah, I am. I mean, if you want to get people rehab, that's great. But I think that if you're in a position of power and authority and you're responsible for the safety of young people, young children, you should definitely know better than to do these type of things and endanger the lives of children. So let's do better. Let's be better. Let's admit to ourselves and to others if we have a problem. If we admit it to ourselves and we can't deal with it ourselves, then talk to someone close and see about getting the proper help. But let's not drink alcohol and smoke marijuana before we drive the children to school. Please and thank you. That's my producer, Pastor Penny, back there chuckling in the background, because I mean it would be funny if it wasn't so sad and it wasn't so dangerous. So that was bus drivers, intoxicated bus drivers is what I labeled that one. So let's do better as a community, and shout out to the lady at the gas station, the clerk that alerted the police and the school system to the young lady when she was drinking, when she bought the beer and got on the bus. My next story on Education Nation comes from the city of Chicago. The headline is Chicago's school staff threw 9-year-old out into the cold and reported him missing, lawsuit says. Yes, you heard that right. The school threw a 9-year-old child out into the cold in Chicago at the end of the winter, and then called the police and reported him missing. So let's get into this one, because this is absolutely infuriating. I'll let you hear for yourself. The family of a 9-year-old Chicago student sued the school system this week. This is from October. Family of 9-year-old Chicago students sued the school system this week, according to staff members, accusing staff members of manhandling a boy and forcing him out of the building in 40-degree weather in Chicago. Yvonne Pinkston, the boy's mother, said officials at Fisk Elementary School on Chicago's South Side threw her son out into the cold alone while wearing short sleeves after he complained about being bullied by classmates, according to the lawsuit. The Herbert Law Firm, which is representing the family, released surveillance from the video appearing to show a security guard dragging the boy to the principal's office, then forcing the fourth grader out of the principal's office and outside of the building, as counselors and the school principal watched nearby. Once the young boy was outside, he went to all of the doors to see if they were open, and all of the doors were locked. So he just sat there, and he said he cried. So he sat outside in the cold in 40-degree weather and cried with a short sleeve shirt on. Now, the school staff eventually called 911 to request an ambulance, claiming that the child, who was listed as KS in the lawsuit, had been scratching, biting, and kicking, according to the suit. They also reported him missing, but they fabricated a whole story. CPS officials at Fisk Elementary School lied to police after they shoved and pushed the 9-year-old boy into the streets of Inglewood, one of Chicago's most violent neighborhoods, with no coat in cold weather during the middle of the school day, and claimed he was a missing person who was violent. Say that again. You threw KS out into the Chicago cold, 40 degrees, in Inglewood, one of Chicago's most violent neighborhoods, no coat, and then labeled him as a missing person who was violent. About 30 minutes later, police found the boy outside in the cold, terrified and crying. The video shows that school officials lied. Now, I saw the video. The video is embedded in the story. And if you see the video, it's pretty infuriating watching this grown security guard manhandle the boy into the principal's office and then manhandle him to the front door and push him out the door. According to his mom, Yvonne, Miss Pinkston, she said she feel like everybody in the video that just sat there and just let it happen, nobody stopped it. She states that somebody needs to go to jail for it or something. That's neglect. It's child endangerment. Anything could have happened to her son, especially in that neighborhood. The lawsuit, which names the city, the Board of Education, and 3 school officials as defendants, claimed the child was subject to a hostile educational environment and alleges battery, excessive force, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Now, mind you, all of this started with this little boy because he'd been going to the school. He was the new student at the school. All the other students at the school thought he was soft, and so they bullied him every day. School officials got upset because the boy and his parents were constantly coming to the office and calling the school, complaining because they wanted the officials to do something about this young man being bullied. And they did do something. They threw him out of the school in 40-degree weather. The mother says, Ms. Pinkston states that KS's experience at Fisk has left him with lasting emotional wounds. KS sees a psychologist weekly to help him overcome the trauma he endured at the hands of the school administrators. The Chicago School Board said it was deeply disturbed by the claims levied by the family, but it declined to comment on the pending litigation. School Board states that every CPS student deserves access to a safe and welcoming school environment, and the district takes seriously all allegations of student harm. These allegations are deeply disturbing, and we are fully committed to holding accountable any adult whose actions could have endangered a student. The lawsuit comes as the school district grapples with several other lawsuits filed by parents, including one who accused teachers of bullying a 4th grade special needs student relentlessly before he attempted suicide earlier that year. States that Jamari Dent, an 11-year-old at the school, tried to hang himself last February after more than a year of chronic and violent bullying at the hands of students and staff members at 2 Chicago schools. Dent, who attended Evers Elementary before transferring to Woodson Elementary, survived the February 18th suicide attempt, but the incident left him with permanent brain damage and other life-threatening injuries. The young boy's mother, Tiara Black, said she begged teachers, school officials in the school district to protect her son, but her complaints were ignored. There's so many things wrong with this story that I just read. But let's start. Let's go back to KS in his story and being thrown out of the school. So now we're at a point in public school systems where the principals and the office administrators no longer want to do their job when it comes to handling issues of bullying. Bullying has become an epidemic in the United States, and there have been laws passed. There are schools with signs in the building that say no bullying zone. But I really don't feel like the schools are doing enough to stop this epidemic of bullying. There's no reason that this young man should have been bullied the way he was every day, and that nothing, absolutely nothing is done about it or can be done about it. I work with children on a regular basis, and there was an incident at one of the schools I worked with last year where there was a fifth grade little boy. The school had stairs, and the students were going down the stairs getting ready to go to lunch. And the young man, the fifth grader, was kicked down the stairs, fell down the stairs, and once he got to the bottom of the stairs and the other students came to where he was, they kicked him in the head before they walked off and went to lunch. I knew this student. I had a personal relationship with this student, and the student is a very sweet young man. He wouldn't hurt a fly. And so that made it even more infuriating to hear his story. And I heard the story from his grandmother, who said that after the incident happened, she went up to the school and complained to the principal. The principal stated that they were looking into it and they would do something about it. And guess what? Nothing was done about it. And so that means none of the other students who took part in this were called into the office. None of them were disciplined. None of them were suspended in school, out of school, in any way, shape, or form. So what does that say to the students who are involved? Well, let's start with the bullies. For the bullies, it emboldens them to keep doing that type of behavior. If you can put somebody down the stairs, kick them in the head, any way, shape, or form, I don't even think they got called into the principal's office. That's going to give them an okay that type of behavior is fine and that they can continue to do it. And that is not the case, because the young man that got kicked down the stairs, he could have been hurt very seriously. I'm surprised he wasn't, because he fell down the stairs and then he got kicked in the head more than once by the students that were perpetrating this crime, because that's what it is. It is a crime. It's assault. It's battery. It's a crime. And so some type of action should have been taken against the children who were the bullies. And so the victim of this bullying incident, what does it say to him that I think it was 3 other boys, the 3 boys that did this to him, absolutely nothing happens to them. And he has to go back to the same school in the same class and be around these same individuals every day. What is that doing for his self-confidence? What is that doing for his ability to learn? And what is it doing for his ability to trust the adults that are supposed to be there to protect him in his interests? He's not going to be in a very good place. And so when his grandmother told me about it, and then the next time I saw the young man, I pulled him to the side. I asked him how he was feeling about the situation. He just kind of shrugged his shoulders like it was another day at school. So how am I supposed to feel? What am I supposed to do? And he had this look on his face of embarrassment because I'm talking to him about it. I guess he didn't know I knew. And so he's embarrassed, and it is embarrassing. It's embarrassing to get kicked downstairs because you're with your class and probably other classes going to lunch, and you kick down the stairs. People are laughing, pointing, and in these days of cameras and cell phones and all this stuff, I'm surprised there's not a video of it. So now this young boy has to deal with self-esteem issues. He has to deal with lack of trust issues. He has to deal with trying to continue to get an education in a hostile environment, and that's not productive for anyone involved in the situation. And so the incident after this story with Jamari Dent, the young man that tried to kill himself, he said he was a victim of chronic and violent bullying. So that means it was more than words. It was more than just a simple hitting. Like, it was chronic and violent. So that means it was happening all the time, and it was apparently pretty violent. And so it was so bad that this young man at age 11 tried to take his own life. And so he wasn't successful in that attempt. And because he wasn't successful, he is now left with permanent brain damage and other life-threatening injuries. And who's responsible for that? Should the school be responsible for that? Because I think they should. Because if the student and the parent is constantly coming to the school and complaining about this incident, and you're doing nothing about it, it's going to lead to an extreme circumstance, like a child trying to hurt himself or kill himself. And again, that goes back to the question that I just asked. These children lose confidence in themselves. They lose confidence in the school system. They lose confidence in the teachers and the adults that are supposed to be there to protect them. And I'm guessing he eventually lost confidence in his mother, because he's going to her, telling her what's going on. She's going to the school trying to get something done. The school is not doing anything. So the young man is left in a hopeless situation where he feels the best recourse is to take his own life. That's unacceptable. It's unacceptable to me. It should be unacceptable to teachers and school districts. And I know that because of the epidemic that bullying has become, that you probably can't do something about every situation. But a situation like this, where the article itself states the bullying was chronic and violent, there has to be more done. It has to be more than we're looking into it, we're investigating, we'll get back to you, and then nothing ever happens. We have to protect our children at all costs. We're losing our children at very, very early ages. This young man was 11. There was another young girl from Alabama last year or the year before. Her name was Mackenzie, and she killed herself. She hung herself in her bedroom because she was being bullied at school. And the bullying got so bad, she was telling her mother couldn't do anything about it. And then one day, she and her mother went out for ice cream. Everything was fine, so the mother thought. They got home. The young girl goes up to her bedroom and never comes back down alive. About an hour later, after they got home, mom went upstairs to check on her because she said it was pretty quiet, and she found her daughter hanging with the cord from the blinds. And that has to be devastating for a parent to find a child hanging lifeless when you were just with her an hour before and thought everything was fine. This mother is going to be scarred for the rest of her life because people at the school or people in the district, no one wants to take these bullying claims seriously. And I get it. It happens a lot. It happens daily. You probably can't do something about all of the instances, which I think you should try at least. But our students are being lost because they feel like they don't have help. They feel like there's no reason to live, and there's always a reason to live. I know I didn't have the best childhood growing up. I got bullied growing up, but I can't ever remember thinking about harming myself or hurting myself. But apparently, this is a new age, a different generation, and the bullying has apparently gotten worse. It's gotten more physical. It's gotten more violent. It's expanded to cyberbullying now. So now children can record them bullying other children on their phones and then upload it to YouTube and send it to everyone in the whole school. And that adds a whole nother dynamic to this bullying epidemic. And so I just want to the schools in the districts, we have to do more. I don't exactly know what that more looks like, but I don't want to just put it on the schools. I mean, the schools have the majority of the responsibility, but it's on the parents too. Like the parents of the bullies have to do more in recognizing that your child is a bully, and doing something about it other than brushing it under the table. These children that are bullying are learning this behavior from somewhere, and either they're learning the behavior from somewhere or they've been through a traumatic experience and they don't know how to process it or talk about it, and now they're lashing out, hurting other children. Hurt people, as the saying goes. But I read a lot of articles and I read regularly, and I'm reading more and more about children hurting themselves, and it's very heart-wrenching for me as someone who cares about children in general. So I can only imagine how it would be for a parent. So we just have to do more, and we have to be better. And I say we because it's a village. It takes a village. I do my part. I try to do my part working with students, mentoring young men and even some young women in some instances, to be a positive role model, and to give them something better to strive for. But it has to be more from the village, and it has to be more from the men in the village. Men, we have a different, what's the word I'm looking for? We have a different, I'll say, authority when it comes to children, especially young boys. I work with the school now, and one of the teachers I work with is a woman, and she has said to me that she's glad on the days that I'm there to work there with her, because students, especially young boys, respond differently to a male figure. The way she said it was, the young boys sometimes feel like they can try the lady teacher because she's a woman. But when you come in as that male figure who don't take no mess, but you're still nurturing and loving to the children, they have a different respect for that. I don't know why that is, but it just is. And so the men in the village, I'm calling on us to do more. because this bullying epidemic is really getting out of hand, and we're losing our children. So let's do and be better. And so what what is the proper punishment for the school officials that watched this young man get thrown out of the building in 40-degree weather? Should they all be fired? Should they be suspended pending an investigation? From what I read in the article, none of that happened. And I think it is, if you see the video of this young boy being thrown out into the cold, it's one particular man, the security guard, that's handling him, but the principal is there, and it's at least two other women sitting there watching this young boy get thrown out. And then when he gets thrown out and they see him pulling on the door trying to get in, they're just like, oh, he'll be okay. And then they hatch this story lying on this young man, saying that he was violent and they needed help. Again, that's sending the wrong message to the students. This young man was already traumatized from being bullied daily. And now he's being re-traumatized by the adults who were supposed to be in the position to protect him. And I liken it to what the black community says about police officers. When police officers are shooting us down in the street like animals, the first thing they said is a lot of times is they're supposed to be protecting us, but this is what they're doing. And so how do you think these children are feeling looking up to these adults who are treating them less than human? There are so many things that could have happened to that young man when they kicked him out. Hypothermia comes to mind because it was cold and he had on a short sleeve shirt. They said that Inglewood is one of the most violent communities in the Chicago area. He could have been kidnapped. He could have been raped. He could have been murdered. There are so many negative possibilities that could have happened. And I'm thankful that none of those did happen. But because the potential was there for them to happen, everybody involved in this should be fired and not be able to work in a teacher capacity or work with students again, especially that principal that allowed this to happen. The principal, you're the president of that school. You're the one in charge. Everything that happens there is under your watch, and your leadership dictates what's going to happen at that school. And your leadership dictated that you don't have leadership. So he should definitely be fired. The security guard should be fired. And the other people that were there were witnesses. Yeah, fired him too, because this young boy was outside in the cold with no jacket, and y'all just sat there and let him sit there by himself and cry. Nobody tried to help him. This young man's trust in the school, in adults, is shot. Will he ever be able to get that back? Or is this situation going to send him into a downward spiral, and he's already in a bad neighborhood in Chicago, and now he's going to fall into the wrong crowd and get into other things that children should not be into? So there's definitely a domino effect from situations like this. And another thing for me is, I know when I went into teaching, they told us that teachers were supposed to be honest and have integrity. There's nothing honest about kicking a child out of a school and then calling 911 to report him missing as a violent student. Yeah, that's beyond the pale. Like, that's above and beyond not protecting the children. Like, you made a conscious effort to fabricate stories about this young man. And because you told the police that he was a violent student, what if they had showed up and do what some police are known to do to black men, women, and children? So there are so many things wrong with this story, so many things that could have happened that thankfully didn't happen. And hopefully he doesn't lose all faith in himself and try to hurt himself like the other young man, Mr. Dent, did. Rest in peace to Jamari Dent. Well, he's not dead, but I pray for him. And I hope that he's able to regain himself, if you will. That because that's pretty serious. And so as far as KS is concerned, and his emotional trauma and the psychological evaluations that he has to go through now because of that, should the school be liable for those expenses? I definitely think so, because it's already a poor neighborhood in Chicago, so the mother doesn't really have the money to be paying for this, but I'm sure she's making a way and sacrificing because her child has been traumatized, and she doesn't want him to try to hurt himself or anybody else. And so my other question is, as a society, have we lost all empathy for other human beings, especially children? Because as far as I'm concerned, children should receive the most sympathy, empathy, loving, caring, nurturing, all of that. And it seems to me, with every story that I read, especially about schools not protecting children, schools not doing anything about bullying, schools blowing the parents off, schools deflecting responsibility for what happened. What have we come to where we see a 9-year-old child outside in the cold by himself crying, and no adult opens the door for this young man? No one tries to take him a coat. Oh, you can't come back in here, but here go a coat. Nothing. I mean, that's the epitome of having lost caring for one another, just as human beings, let alone as students. But as a human being, why would you want to see another human being suffer like that? And so again, we have to do a better job of protecting and educating our students. And so there's one more. Oh, okay. Well, maybe I won't do the last. Well, I'll do a quick synopsis for the last one because we have to get ready to wrap up. A video of an officer in North Carolina body slamming a child to the ground twice at a middle school in North Carolina. In the video, it shows, I'm guessing the student had gotten in trouble, and so the officer's walking down the hall with him, next to him by the students, and it looks like they're casually walking to the office. It doesn't look like any words are being exchanged. And then all of a sudden, the officer just grabs this 11-year-old student. I'm guessing he was 11 because the article just says a student under 12. So the officer grabs this student, picks him up over his head, and slams him on his face. Then he immediately grabs the little boy again, picks him up again, and slams him the other way. And the little boy landed on his arm and on his side. So I'm sure he sustained some injury. And then he picks the little boy up off the floor and literally drags him to wherever he was taking him, drag him down the hall with both. He has the young man in both hands, picking him up, carrying him down the hallway, I guess taking him to the office. The incident was so egregious that the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation is now investigating the matter. Sheriff Curtis Brame of Vance County, who is the boss of the officer in question, he said they went over the video, and when they first saw it, they were stunned and shocked. He states, "We are all parents and grandparents and that have children at the same age, so it brought some great concern to us." Brame added that the school resource officer, one of two assigned to the school, has been placed on paid leave amid an investigation into the incident. The school resource officer gave no explanation. He could possibly face charges depending on the extent of the child given. Now, depending on the extent of the child's injury. There was no name given for maybe they're abusing a child. And this was physical abuse. If you see this video, it's infuriating to see this grown man, he had to be at least 240 pounds, pick up this under 100 pound child and slam him twice and drag him to the office. So, of course, that child is going to have some emotional trauma and damage. He's not going to trust adults. He's not going to trust police officers. And he's definitely probably going to need some counseling also. So again, this is unacceptable. This is a police officer, again, who has gone beyond the scale and scope of his authority to abuse a child. And they're asking, he didn't get fired. He's suspended pending an investigation. After what I saw in this video, this should be an immediately fireable offense. And I know that little boy has some serious injuries, and I hope his parents sue and win so that they can pay for his medical expenses. But this officer should have definitely been fired, and he should never be able to work around children again. So again, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes an entire village, meaning the school, the parents, the community, the churches, to take care of and protect our children and put them in a position to be successful in life. There are so many obstacles that we have to face in life as general and that children are facing, and they need to know that there are people out there looking out for them. So that ends my Education Nation for the day in my stories of adults behaving badly. I think we definitely need to do better as the adults. Like, we are the adults. We're supposed to be in a better position to be in control of ourselves. But one thing I've learned as an adult is that some adults are just grown children who haven't gotten over their traumas of the youth or whatever issues they may have had as a youth, and we're putting them in positions to care for and take care of our children. And so schools have to do a better job of vetting the people that they bring around our children. And for the parents, we have to be vigilant in listening to our students and the concerns of our students. I know sometimes parents don't always take the students seriously, but we have to be aware of what's going on in the lives of our children and our students, just so we can know what necessary steps to take in order to keep them safe and protected. So again, it's a village community effort. It takes everybody. And if we all strive to do better, we can and will be better. So let's do that, people. Let's work on that. All right. And with that being said, I'm going to bring this show to a close, but I cannot do that without mentioning my scholars of the week. So my first scholar of the week goes to the Georgia triplets who graduated summa cum laude with a 4.0 GPA. It says triplets from Henry County, Georgia, which is right down the street from where we are. Graduated from Ola High School as summa cum laude, with each of them earning a 4.0 GPA. Kendall, Kobe, and Sydney Belcher give their parents credit for setting such high standards. It was always expected to be at the top of the class, Cody said. So Kendall, Kobe, and Sydney were all double enrolled in college while they were in high school. So they already started college with around a year of credits. Their aunt, Kathy Belcher, says that she's really proud of them. And the triplets started learning from their parents, who taught them to read and write as early as 3 years old. Again, parents, that's putting the onus on you to make sure that your child and our students are getting started early by you reading and teaching to them at a young age. So now they're all off and they've gone to college. Sydney attends Georgia State University to become a nurse and function every day in Children's Hospital's hematology oncology unit. Kobe also attends the University of Georgia State and plans to pursue a communications career. Kendall attends Gordon State College and is aiming for a career in the financial services sector. So shout out to these three triplets, these three Georgia local triplets from Henry County, for graduating summa cum laude and graduating with a 4.0. That is very impressive. My next Scholar of the Week goes to Mr. Troy Luna. Definitely want to give a big shout out to Troy Luna. Troy Luna was a 5th grade elementary student in California. He was one of 30 kids on a bus when Troy noticed a strange smell and stench coming from his bus driver. Troy took note of the weird smell, then noticed the driver was beginning to speed up and swerve along the road. At one point, she pressed on the brakes suddenly, causing the students to smack their heads on the back of the seats in front of them. Again, this is another bus driver acting the fool. Then the bus driver missed an important turn and ended up driving fast on the highway. Troy was convinced something was wrong, so he told the other students around him, "I'm just going to call 911." His friends tried to talk him out of it. They didn't want him to make a mountain out of a molehill and risk getting in trouble. But the thing with Troy is he has 8 other siblings at home, and he's always known for looking out for his siblings. So he was accustomed to looking out for other small children. He said his gut told him he needed to step in, and he wasn't about to ignore his instincts. He told everybody else, "I don't care, I don't feel right," and he made the call to 911, and they were able to stop the bus and found out that the bus driver was intoxicated with smoking marijuana, because again, it happened in California and it's another legal state. So legal states, we got to do better about vetting these people that are driving, teaching, and taking care of our students in these legal states. I'm all for legalization, but certain things definitely need to be kept away from our students and children. So big shout out to Troy Luna for stepping up and being a community hero and saving the lives of him and 29 other students on that bus. So again, thank you for listening and tuning in to WCEG Talk Radio, Conversations in Conversation. I am your host, Vincent Cheeks. It has been a pleasure. You something to listen to today. I absolutely jumping into 2020 with both feet, full body, 10 toes down, and having a happy and prosperous new year. I wish you a happy new year full of love, peace, and prosperity. And we will return on January the 21st for another exciting show. So thank you for tuning in. You all have a blessed evening and good night. Thank you.